Good evening, and welcome to Soluble, America's Political Central. Well, here we are, folks. It's upon us. There's no time for undecidedness. There's no time for fence sitting. It's time to make a decision one way or another. So, twice tonight before the midterms, went all through the House. All the creatures were stirring, trying to push the turnout. And that's what's going to take for us to win this thing tomorrow. To keep Democrats in power, we got to have turnout. That's the operative key word here. Turnout, turnout, turnout. It's the word of the month now. This is the way that we're going to keep America on the right track, if you will. Because as I've said, just to tell the truth and shame the devil. We can't get to a solution if we don't try to take a deep dive into the truth. Whether it's opinionated truths, fact-based truths, whether it's something you heard from another source that was the truth. It doesn't matter as long as it's the truth, which the Republicans are not interested in. They're not interested in truth. They're not interested in governing from a center-right position, or they're not interested in governing from a partisanship position where they're willing to work across the aisles. Within the last 4 to 6 years, the Republicans just have gone, rogue right, and they put the interest of the party above the best interest for the country. And so, it's decision making time. It's decision making time. If you're sitting on the fence, if you're undecided, you have 24 hours. If you are non-voter, if you've never voted, it's still not too late. You can work a 24-hour miracle and still get your vote in before the polls close tomorrow. But nevertheless, it's midterm election time. Midterm election time. Now, 2 years ago, before the presidential election, all of America, the vast majority of America thought that, voting against Trump, getting him out of office would be the end to that fiasco, that disaster, that constitutional crisis that America was constantly in for 4 years there. But nevertheless, he's hard to kill. He's hard to kill. He's rearing his ugly head. Some on the campaign trail, still doing rallies. And so we still have a job to do, even though it's disappointing that he didn't concede. He didn't, call Joe Biden to congratulate him on a victory. We still have work to do. We have to get rid of it. And so, just as determined as Republicans are, we have to double down as Democrats and fight the good fight, because democracy itself is on the ballot. The future of the country is at stake here. The future of organized elections, free and fair elections, and all the rights and freedoms that we cherish as Americans are definitely on the ballot, because the Republican Party put in a celebrity for president of the United States who had no experience, zero experience in the field of government and governing people, making decisions. The buck stops with me. So they rolled the dice. They took a gamble. They were willing to take a gamble, on the Constitution, on this great nation that we call America. And here's where we are. After everything has come out in the wash, and spin cycle or whatever, and it's all boiled down, this is where we're at. The celebrity in chief that they put on the ticket, that they allowed to win the nomination, and then further go out and elect him as president, has torn the country down. He's undermined our basic institutions. He's tainted the elections. He's tainted the Supreme Court. He's tainted America's belief in America itself. So the only way we're going to right the ship or to continue to, sail on calm waters and peaceful waters is we have to get out and vote. That's the system that we're in. So, it may seem like just yesterday that we had the presidential election. It's time. It's here again. Another opportunity to vote. Another time to put your patriotic duty out there and let your voice be heard. Now, it could tend to be weary. It could tend to be, something that wears you down because, we all have our everyday lives of work, to pay bills. We have family. Some of our kids are participating in sports. Some of us are working 2 jobs. Excuse me. Some of us are working night jobs. Whatever we have to do to make ends meet. But we still need to find time to dig deep, to go that extra mile and cast a ballot. Because, it matters now more than ever. In the past, before the Trump administration, before Donald John Trump came into being, we never seen democracy under this kind of threat. Republicans have historically not wanted to play fair. You always have to watch out for shenanigans and things like that. But to go rogue right as they have now, this is something that we haven't seen in our lifetime. We're just a heartbeat away from anarchy, civil unrest. We're just a heartbeat away from it. After the celebrity in chief that the Republicans put into office, not interested in governing, not interested in doing what's best for all of America. He's looking for a red state appeal, a Trump voter only appeal. He's incapable. He refuses to govern for all of America. And with that being said, it has left Trump and overran the whole party. His mentality, his thought process, his nastiness has infected the whole Republican Party. And so, now it's like monkey see, monkey do. That's where Trump has got him at now because they took a look at his approach. They took a look at his style of governing, his style of politics, and a lot of them have adopted it as their own. And so, tomorrow when you go to the polls, keep that in mind. Keep that in mind that, we're trying to stop an infection from spreading further. A political infection, a governing infection. We're trying to stop it. Now, we have the power as the people. We have the power. But the power is no good if you don't use it. If you don't go out and exercise your right to vote. Then, you go from being powerful to powerless. And after tomorrow, come Wednesday morning, it's too late to complain. It's too late to gripe. Shoulda, woulda, coulda is totally irrelevant Wednesday morning. So turn out, turn out, turn out. I can't say it enough. The Democrats are trying to save America, trying to keep our political discourse intact. Republicans are only interested in majorities where they can investigate, where they can continue to cater to the rich at the peril and the tearing down of middle class, everyday working Americans. So what's at stake here? Everything. Everything about democracy. Everything about our daily lives, our livelihood is on the ballot now. Because the Republicans went so far as to put a person in office who was totally, wholly, altogether, unanimously unfit, unqualified, not having a clue as to what it takes to run the most powerful nation in the world. So, it's now or never. I can't, it sounds cliche, it sounds repetitive. But what else can we do? If we're sick and tired of being sick and tired, you know, the women's right to choose is gone. A woman's, freedom to make decisions between her and her physician is gone. Democracy as we know it, or as we have known it, is being seriously contaminated, is being seriously corrupted. Politicians are less and less willing to reach across the aisle. And now, here's where we're at. We had a free and fair election in 2020. Now, here 2 years later, we got election deniers running. We got election deniers, overseeing state elections in some cases. And it's just a thing that's run amok. There's no respect for the system that's been in place for hundreds of years. The ballots were counted in 2020. The ballots were certified. The former president complained. He said something wasn't right. He said he was cheated. The courts listened. They looked at all the evidence. They listened. But there was nothing there. There was nothing there. But in spite of the fact that he ran it through the courts, fair and equal, the courts looking for evidence, despite all of the fact that he ran it through the courts and he had his day in court, he still double downs and pushes the big lie to say that it was stolen, it was rigged. What kind of leader cannot admit to defeat? Cannot admit that he gave it his all and he came up short? That's a dangerous leader. This is a dangerous party, and therefore it makes it a dangerous time in America because they've doubled down on their denial. They've doubled down on the lies, the threats. They haven't tried to stop them, speak out against them, threaten to prosecute them within the fullest extent of the law. They've let it go on and on and on, and it's corrupted our politics, corrupted our civil discourse. So if you don't want to turn back down that path, if you want to keep America moving forward, there's only one way to do it right now, is to vote. That is the way to keep things moving in a forwardly direction, as we've done since my lifetime and before, since your lifetime and before. The Republican Party is a most dangerous party now in America. I mean, we always knew that it was a civil rights, a civil war, old South throwback party, old rebel throwback party, the grand old party. But we kind of hoped for the best that they would always put country first, even though we felt like their ideology, their political ideology was flawed, was behind the times. Their political ideology was going contrary to where America's better days ahead lie. And they won't stop at nothing, as you see. Right now, the Republican Party, since putting the former president in the Oval Office, and we all see or saw what kind of president he became, what kind of president he was. Once that happened, and no Republicans come out forcefully, in a matter of fact, direct, adamant way to condemn this president's actions, his speech, his lack of commitment to uphold the Constitution. They lost the high road. They lost the high road to criticize any Democratic president thereafter. But there's no shame in their game. They're doubling down. They won't stop and take a look at that fact. That fact being that once you put the former president in office and he was totally corrupt, and you said nothing, you did nothing about it, now you come out forcefully, quick to criticize anything that the current president is doing. When you're governing a country, when you're a leader, a lawmaker, if you will, you're in an important role here. You have a duty to, not only your constituents, but to the whole country to make sure that fairness, integrity, everything that it takes to make a lawmaker better from day to day should be exemplified, should be written in the rules of engagement. But those rules over the last 6 years, those rules coming from the right have been thrown out the window. And they had a president in office, a Republican president, who was just totally unchecked, totally off keel, just winging it, running America into the ground. Said nothing, did nothing. Now, Joe Biden, the current president we have now, can do nothing right. Oh, Joe Biden's responsible for this crime. This is Joe Biden's inflation. Joe Biden's he's terrible for America here. He's doing everything wrong there. I mean, what? Are you serious? Are you serious? So as Republican lawmakers, legislators, they're quick to come out and castigate Joe Biden. There's nothing he can do right. Nothing he can do right. And of all the foul things, behavior-wise, conduct-wise, that the former president did, they never found the words. They didn't have the guts, the courage. So you think about that when you're voting or not voting, or voting Republican. They lost the high road to criticize any president. Thereafter, President Trump. But they won't take that advice. They won't listen to that. So, we know these criticisms are coming not from a place where what's in the best interest of the country is in mind. This is just political biasness. This is just political gamesmanship, political theater. I mean, think about it, ladies and gentlemen. If you're going to, not criticize the former president, Trump, how, comparing the two men, comparing their style of governance and how they conduct themselves as president in the Oval Office, how can you fix your mouth to criticize this president, lambaste this president, but nothing for the former president who was way worse? So, at the end of the day, opposition here is soluble, is that it's politics. It's politics. Now, we're strong Democrat supporters. We're strong Democrat supporters. But there's no biases here. There's no biases. We feel like the Democrats are the best party for the job, the best people to put in power for the sake of America, and they get the job. If we vote them in and they start doing something wrong, we're going to hold them accountable. We're going to hold them accountable. Whether it's the president, whether it's the senator, whether it's the vice president, whether it's a Supreme Court nominee, the Democrats are going to hold them accountable. Unlike Republicans, who I've just said could not, would not, did not have the courage to hold the former president accountable when he was wrong on so many levels, so many times. Didn't have the wherewithal, the manliness to hold him accountable as he ran roughshod over the Constitution. And this is the party now that's asking for your vote to put them in power again, when they've shown a cowardness, a weakness to stand on truth, to support the truth, to stand up for what was right based on what was written by the founders in the Constitution. Nothing was said. Nothing was done. The Democrats tried to impeach twice. Legitimate reasons. Things that the president was doing. Now, they didn't want to do that. They didn't want to go to impeachment. I'm pretty sure if you ask most Democratic lawmakers at that time, they would rather for the president to straighten up and fly right and do the right thing. You know, do what's in America's best interest for the American people. They didn't want to go this route for impeachment. They were forced to. They were pushed to do it. And had they not done it, then the vast majority of Americans, especially Democrats, would have said they've lost their backbone. This party has lost its way. But to show that they had a backbone and to show that they hadn't lost their way and they had the courage to do the right thing, they were forced to impeach him twice. Forced to. Not by choice. Not something that, you know, they just to look for something that they can just pull out of thin air to scare the American people, to deceive the American people, to say, you know, this is worthy of an investigation when it's not. These were legitimate reasons. Now, unlike the Democrats, who are already talking now that if they take power, if they take back power in the House, they take back the majority, they're ready to investigate. Why not legislate? We're in a post-pandemic inflation era now. We're in a post-pandemic economy where there are rough times going on. Why not legislate to make the lives of the everyday American people better? Now, we need your vote. We need Democratic turnout. Is there a Republican out there listening now? Can tell me how, in this post-COVID era, Republicans are going to make the lives of everyday American people better when the main thing they want to do when they get power is to come out and investigate. How is that going to fix things now that were broken during the pandemic era, during the pandemic time, when coronavirus was hitting at its strongest? Yes, you know, the president and his administration may have put too much money into the economy and turned up inflation as it relates to supply and demand. If that's the case, you know, we need to correct it. We need to do what it takes to make it right. People make mistakes. But unlike the Republicans, the Democrats are ready to acknowledge that, you know, we didn't see this coming. Yeah, we pumped too much money in, and, you know, it's turned up inflation. We expect them to do so as Democratic supporters. We expect them to do so. Turnout, ladies and gentlemen, turnout is going to be key. Tomorrow is the big day. After tomorrow, if Republicans are in power in any majority way come Wednesday morning, going into the next year when they take over, it's going to be a bad time in America. because America is progressing on so many levels. And the Republicans' only interest is to turn the hands of time back. Their only interest is to turn the hands of time back from the progress that we began to make, the hole that we are beginning to dig ourselves out of. They have no answers. And up to this point, if they did have them, they haven't come out and revealed them in secret, in small, sound bites here or there. But they have no answers. They have no plan to govern. They have no plan to govern. So, you know, everything is on the ballot. We went over it here the past week, too. Everything is on the ballot. This is one of the first times in my lifetime that democracy itself was so seriously on the ballot. Uh, the threat to democracy. We've never seen this in our lifetime. We've never seen it. I mean, we've always known that Republicans were racist, that they waited until they got to their cigar smoke filled country club rooms, in their private residences, in their private meeting places to, espouse their racial ideology, their racist theories, their racist approach to governing so called minorities. But the former president brought it all out to the forefront. And so we had no other choice here at Soluble but to come on and be a buttress, if you will, a pushback, if you will, against the lies, the corruption that has permeated the Republican Party. And that's what we plan to do. We plan to hold Democrats and Republicans accountable when the situation calls for it. When the situation calls for it. And as I just said, perhaps the president and his administration has put the current president and his administration has probably put too much money into the economy with the relief money. And it has had a major effect on supply and demand in a negative way. And if that's the case, let's call it like we see it. Balls and strikes. We owe that to the American people. And here at Soluble, that's what we plan on giving you. The facts. The truth. No spin. And as I've said before, if we do have guests in the future, if we do have Republicans who want to come on and challenge the narrative, we welcome that. But we won't allow spin. We won't allow them to duck the question like so many news outlets do. Like so many news organizations do. They ask the question. And it could be a Democrat or a Republican. But they want to evade it. They want to duck the question. Or they want to go off and start talking about something else and just, do a total deflection. What kind of politicians do we have when that happens? So, there's no solution. There's no solving anything in particular that's going on in politics at any given time if we here at Soluble allow our guests or our Republican challengers to duck the question, to spin. We're going to hold them accountable, and we're going to double down, each and every time on holding them accountable. Now, just briefly, on the things that we've touched on over the last few weeks in the final appeal before the midterms. the final appeal to let's get our Democratic turnout up and out. Let's get our Democratic turnout up, and then let's get them out to actually cast a vote. So for the last 2 weeks, as I said, we thought we've touched pretty good on all the issues that's affecting the American people, the things that are on their mind, the things that concern them going into the midterm. So we're going to touch briefly on those again, and then we're going to make one final appeal to Negro voters in the country who are pretty much 90% or better voting Democrat. Okay, here we go. We're going to take another deep dive, not so deep, but just touch on, the things that we've talked about in the last couple of weeks. Crime in America. Crime is, a major concern. We can all acknowledge that. Now, from the right and the left, the Democrats are not for defunding the police. They want to make sure that the police are funded, and they want to make sure also that the police are doing their job by the book. By the book. And if we have criminals, it doesn't matter what race, creed, or color. We need to lock them up, prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law, but within the rights or within the working barriers that police have. Nothing out of bounds that even slightly resembles police brutality when they're pulling over in traffic stops so-called minorities. Now, from the Republican point of view, as I said, they've made it seem as if police officers are under attack. Crime is spiraling out of control, and it's a doomsday scenario. Nothing can be further than the truth. Nothing can be further than the truth. Now, from the right, as I've said before, they put a president in office who was a one-man crime show, an instigator of crime, a crime starter all over the country with blood on his hands. If you're a firefighter, your job is to put out fires. But if you have fires popping up all around you, here, there, and everywhere, every so many days there's a new fire, then you start to go after the arsonist. Your job is just as important to go after the arsonist as it is to put out these fires that are popping up all over the place. And as a matter of fact, if you go after the arsonist, then that ends the fires that are popping up all over the place. This is the Republican Party, and the arsonist was the former president, Donald John Trump. If crime is up in the country, it's because the former president lit the fuse. He ignited a powder keg with his racist ideology, his racist theories, his racist and bigoted approach, and he caused the nation to rise up in civil unrest. And the Republicans say nothing, but they're concerned about crime. You have a crime starter here, a major crime starter. And the Republicans look the other way, while the former president is instigating crime all over the country. They don't see that. They don't care about that. And all of a sudden now, they're the party that is going to get tough on crime. You're not in this country, in the year of our Lord, 2022. You're not going to have a Republican president who is racist and bigoted, who is going to say things and do things, and the nation is not going to rise up. So-called minorities are not going to rise up because we're all forward-thinking people now. We're not trying to go back. Although that's where the MAGA movement seemed to be going, was trying to take the nation back into a time of dark civil unrest. We're not going there. So on one hand, if you're concerned about crime and if you're feeling like, crime is getting out of control, then you have to check the president. You have to check the former president who caused it, who ignited the flames. who ignited the flames. But the Republicans' thinking is that, this president, and you've often heard it said from his supporters, from his voters, I like him because he speaks his mind. Well, for every action, there's a reaction. For every action, there's a reaction. So the action is you have a president in office who was an instigator of crime. And then when the crime starts to happen and occur, then, which is the reaction, now you have the Republicans saying, oh, let's get tough on crime. And this is the party, ladies and gentlemen. This is crime in a nutshell. The Republicans want to get tough on crime, but they want to look the other way and do nothing with the crime starter. Blood on his hands, inciting violent mobs, bribery, violation of the Emoluments Clause. He started his campaign out telling his supporters to knock people out, verbal, physically assault them. I'll get my lawyer to get you out. This is an instigator of crime. And so, here we are, one day away from the midterm. And when it comes to crime, you have a Republican Party who elected a president who was a crime starter. He was a crime starter, and crime started. That's the way it was supposed to be. If you're a crime starter, then crime is going to start. Just like I said in reference to the arsonist. If you're a fire starter, then fires are going to start. So you can't play both sides of the fence here. It's like a throw that rock and hide your hand approach. Tough on crime, it's a joke. It's a joke. The state of crime in America now is primarily because the former president come in and stirred the nation up. The current level of crime, if it seems as if crime is out of control, is because that's the reaction from a racist party, a racist, bigoted president who did not judge the country, did not govern the country from a position of fairness, from a position of equality. And it created a civil unrest. So there you have it when it comes to crime. So are the Republicans prepared to tell the American people now, if you put us in, we'll stop the crime starter and the crime too? Because that's where it's at, ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to crime in America. This is something that started on the Republicans' watch. And now they want to convince you, the American people, less than 24 hours before the midterm, that they're the party that can stop it, that can control it. They're the party that can do something about it. Well, our position here at Soluble is, if you want to do something about it, don't start it in the first place. Don't create this situation. And to the American people, you might as well know at the end of the day, there's nothing that the Republicans can do when it comes to crime but to do the right thing and govern the nation from a position of fairness, from a position of equality. Because if they don't, then crime is going to be here. It's going to continue to escalate. It's going to continue to go south. Because the Republicans are doing things to cause civil unrest in the nation. So that's it when it comes to crime. You have a party that's starting crime. They're supporting the president who comes into office and stirs up the nation. You don't begin to poke a beehive and you don't think that they're going to come out swarming. They're not going to stay dormant. If you poke the hive, if you poke the nest, they're going to come out and begin to swarm. And that's what happened with crime. That's what happened with crime. The former president and his administration, his cronies, they began to aggravate the American people, poke the American people. There was MAGA symbolism with Derek Chauvin's knee on the neck of Brother George Floyd. And that MAGA symbolism was an action. It was something that we all saw. We freeze frame it in our brains now. We all saw it. And that symbolic MAGA action that Chauvin took caused a reaction. So there you have it. If you want crime down, if you want crime under control, elect leaders who are going to govern the nation from a position of fairness, from a position of equality. That's the way to get crime down and keep it down. And so that's it when it comes to crime. The Republicans stirred it up. They poked the nest. And the citizens begin to swarm as if they were a hive of bees. It's only a natural reaction. It's only a natural reaction. So our belief here at Soluble is that the party that starts crime, that brings in a corrupt leader, cannot at the same time be the party that can control crime, that can keep crime down. Because based on the things that we've seen in the last couple of years, we know that their approach, their ideology, their style of governance will only tend to rile people up, to stir people up. When they lie about elections and support these lies, then, it creates crime. It creates criminal acts. And we've seen them. We've seen them left and right. The government now is having to, ban mass armed so-called ballot box watchers ready to commit crime. So there you have it. If you're thinking that the Republicans are prepared to get tough on crime and bring crime under control, you're sadly mistaken. They're only going to stoke the flames. And that's our position here at Soluble when it comes to the left on crime and the right on crime. The economy. Once again, trickle down economics. It hasn't worked in the past. It's not going to work now. The economy under the last two Republican presidents, the economy stayed afloat. The economy stayed, somewhat promising under the former President Trump. But it's only because he came in with the success, that Obama created, that Obama started. So, if you come in behind, your predecessor and he already has things looking good, you can't help but to go right. You can't help but to look good and do good because he already has the well-oiled machine rolling downhill. That's what happened here. Now, under the last Republican administration, we saw what happened when Clinton left and there was a budget surplus. We saw what happened by the end of those 8 years of George W. Bush. This trickle-down economic, this compassionate conservatism. And it was so compassionate, but not to the everyday working American people, the ones who were at the top, robbing us, Kenny Lay, Bernie Madoff, and any of, these Republican lobbyists, insider traders, on Wall Street, who know that, the Republicans are in charge of government. There's not going to be no regulation. They're not going to, kick up a lot of dust if we begin to cheat, if we begin to, fudge the bottom line, if we begin to, play with fuzzy math. The Republicans are not going to come down hard on us because, for number one, they're for the wealthy. And, they believe very little in regulation. So there you have it. There you have it on the economy. Balls and strikes. Balls and strikes. And it's no different now than, a fix for a trickle-down economy that's going to trickle down. From where? From who? It's not going to be Elon Musk. It's not going to be any of these other rich billionaires, millionaires. Why can't, the Republican Party just come out and say, we want to give, a pay increase to the American people. And we're going to find a way to work it into legislation. As Donald Brazile said, they'll complain about high gas prices. and talk about high food prices, but they won't offer the American people a livable wage. They won't bring it to the floor for a vote from a Republican, sponsored bill for a livable wage for the American people. But they're complaining that everything is up. It's up. It's up. This is smoke and mirrors, ladies and gentlemen. This is smoke and mirrors. They love a good soundbite. They love good talking points. But at the end of the day, that's what it is. That's all it is. It's a talking point. What do they have for the economy? And as I've said before, we're in a post-COVID era. Climate change is seriously affecting our daily lives at the grocery store, at the gas pump. But put Republicans in power, and they will show you how they can make the mighty Mississippi rise again. The water levels are low. The Mississippi River is a major shipping hub. So, according to the Republicans, it's Joe Biden's fault that when it comes to the economy, the climate change is doing what it's doing and wreaking havoc on the economy. Joe Biden can't control this. But what he has tried to do is reach across the aisle and bring about the passage of some kind of bill, some kind of laws that will help stem the tide of climate change, to slow down the effects of it. And the Republicans are nowhere to be found as co-sponsors, as members of a party ready to sign on, because their belief is if we sign on to anything that will help the economy and the economy begins to turn around, begins to show, an upswing, it's going to make Joe Biden look good. Never mind the country. Never mind the country. This is the Republican Party playing politics with the everyday lives of American people. So, we need your vote twice a night before the midterms. This is another reason to go out and vote. Another reason to go out and vote. Because they don't have nothing for you, ladies and gentlemen. We tried trickle-down economics. We've had a taste of compassionate conservatism. And it almost broke the dollar. It almost set the dollar back to, the same level of value as a peso. So what's new? I haven't heard it. If you have, we beg to differ here at Soluble. But here at Soluble, we haven't heard it. We haven't heard what's new. So it's trickle-down economics. And, if you don't vote, then that's what we're going to be set to get. And it could go from bad to worse. They crashed the economy once. The former president came in and the first thing he did was give a tax cut to the wealthy, adding to the deficit, putting the burden on the everyday American taxpayer. Now, when that happened, when that tax cut for the wealthy happened, where was this huge wave of working class people to come forward and say, my life is better now because the CEO of the company I work for, he got a tax break and he paid it forward a lot to us, the American worker. So that's it on the economy. Nothing but trickle-down economics that always seem to dry up before they get to the most needy of the American people, the workers, the ones who are out here struggling, trying to make ends meet, the ones who are trying to pay a bill and hope they have a little bit of money left over for a good time, for some kind of leisure activity. It dried up before it got to them. So it starts out as a trickle, and it stays that way. It dries up as a trickle before it reaches the pocketbooks of everyday working Americans. That's the economy, folks, from the right. From the right. Now, historically, if you go back in time and you study, Democratic administrations and Republican administrations, you will see that historically, the economy has done better on the Democrats. You will see that. Pitches and strikes. And balls and strikes. Balls and strikes here, ladies and gentlemen. That's all we're going to do. If you go back and not take Soluble's word for it, if you go back and do your own research, you will see that historically, the economy has done better under Democratic leadership. And we'll leave it there. Healthcare. Once again, a no-brainer. Woman's right to choose, to make decisions between her and a doctor, gone. Gone. Prescription drug prices not being lowered. Attack on Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security. They want to gut it. They want to take it away. We already see what they try to do with the Affordable Care Act. If it wasn't for the two Johns, it would probably be history. The first one, the Supreme Court Judge John Roberts, said it's a tax. So the Republicans lost a bid at the Supreme Court to have it overturned. Then they came back with Trump in office with the majority, and the late great Senator John McCain gave it a thumbs down. Because in his heart of hearts, as a decent man, regardless of party, he knew that there was nothing to replace it with. They had no plan. They had no plan to replace. They had a talking point. They had a talking point to replace it, to replace the Affordable Care Act. But a plan in place, never there was. And the late great Senator John McCain, he saw that, so he gave it a thumbs down. So healthcare, we don't have to just go on and on and on and on when it comes to healthcare. We know the position. It's right there in your face. It's just a matter of who's willing to go out and make a difference by casting a vote. Healthcare under the Republicans, you're looking at a slow death. You're looking at denial of treatment. You're looking at being turned away from your local physician. Never before in this country have we ever heard of not being turned away with pre-existing conditions. Not until the Affordable Care Act. And, rich doctors all across the country went mad. They went mad. And so the Republicans went mad because they're for the rich. They don't want to give the working man a break. They want to keep him number two as that, everlasting self-serving mule, if you will. That everlasting self-serving grunt, if you will. They have no interest in governing from a position that helps you. They tell you that. But what have we seen? What have we seen when the rubber meets the road? Nothing. So, that's it. In our final appeal to get out the vote. They have nothing on healthcare. Nothing. But to spend as less as possible. And when it comes to prescription meds, to charge you as much as possible. Because that's where the drug lobby wants it. And, they're constantly in Republicans' ear. Because they know they have an influence there. The Republicans have a weakness for money over people. They have a weakness for profits over people. And the drug lobby knows this. So with less than 24 hours out, that's where we're at on healthcare. Balls and strikes. Turn down the Affordable Care Act, take it away, get rid of it. Not that it's not good for the country. That's not it. That's not what this is about, folks. And if it's not, as we stated, if the Affordable Care Act is not good for the country, what are you going to replace it with? What can you say to the American people that would make them say, I'm going to vote Republican this time around simply because they have the best health care plan? They don't have nothing but anger, resentment for Democrats who are trying as best as they can to keep the country on the right track. So, there you go. Healthcare 101. Either you're voting with the Democrats to strengthen the Affordable Care Act. There may be parts in there that need to go back before lawmakers to amend, to make better, then if so be, let's let it be done. But to take it away altogether and have more people dying slower, more people suffering faster, then, let the Republicans get the majority. And that's just what you'll see. So that's it on healthcare. From the Republicans' point of view, you're on your own. From a Democratic point of view, they want to create a healthcare system, a healthcare plan that all Americans can get insured and become more healthier. Because let's face it, we're dealing with cancer, we're dealing with obesity epidemics, we're dealing with mental health crisis. All these fall under healthcare. Now, what can the Republicans do if there's a mental health crisis going on? If there's a situation there's an American citizen having a mental breakdown because they haven't taken their meds or they're just having a bad day, the Republicans' idea is to send a cop, call the police, and let them deal with it. That's not the answer. That's a bad mix. When you have somebody having a mental health crisis with a weapon or without a weapon, and you're sending the police there. So think about it before you go in and make the vote. The Republicans have nothing for you on health care except your own. And if they do have a plan, why haven't they shown it thus far? If they have something better than the Affordable Care Act that they can replace it with, that's better. What are they waiting on to show it? They have nothing. Nothing. So, that's it. Balls and strikes on health care. The Democrats put out the Affordable Care Act. The Republicans tried to take it away. Simple. You do the math. Plain and simple. Foreign policy. Now, we heard, from Republicans, the wannabe leader McCarthy, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, we just heard the other day, not another penny for Ukraine. Not another penny for Ukraine. Ukraine is in the fight of its life right now from a neighboring country who's a bully, who's once again, like the Republican Party, trying to take the world back to a time of the USSR when, these neighboring states, these neighboring regions that are around Russia have moved on with their own independence. And here comes Putin trying to take it back. And the Republicans, from a position of foreign policy, can do nothing. Don't want to do nothing. You'll see more suffering. You may see strengthened alliances between Russia and China, Russia and Iran. And what are the Republicans playing? Every one of them, when it comes to president, they want to come in and wag the dog. They're anxious for war. They love the saber rattle. They want to flex America's military might when it's not even called for, when there's no threat there. Sending your sons and daughters off into harm's way into places like Iraq, where there were never no chemical weapons found. We never found the mobile labs. We never found any weapons of mass destruction. So, it's buyer beware. It's like a box of chocolates from Forrest Gump's mom. You don't know what you're going to get when it comes to foreign policy with these Republicans. But you can bet one thing for sure. It may be something that they try to cover up from the American people. It may be something they just go out and do without getting with Congress, getting congressional approval. Assassinating foreign military leaders, creating enemies, creating dangerous situations for American diplomats all around the world. Foreign policy. They're clueless. They're clueless. Had they been tougher on the former president when it came to bribing Ukraine, maybe we wouldn't be in this situation. Perhaps Vladimir Putin would have thought twice, 3 times, seeing that America was solidly behind Ukraine. But the former president made it seem as if Ukraine was a joke, made it seem as if Ukraine was a country that didn't need to be taken seriously, that they could be toyed around with. And this only emboldened Vladimir Putin. This only emboldened him. So what do they have? Misleading statements, misleading agendas, telling the American people one thing when actuality is something else. Cooking the books on foreign policy as a reason, as a pretext to invade. This is what we're more than likely to get from the Republican Party when it comes to foreign policy. The former president's cronies, Mnuchin, son-in-law Jared Kushner, they're all over in Saudi Arabia trying to make deals, trying to solidify deals for their own personal businesses, for their own personal fortunes. And they're still on the payroll of the American people. Before the former president officially left office in January, they were still on the payroll working for the American people. But they're all over in these foreign countries cozying up by any means necessary, trying to create wealth, more wealth for themselves personally or for their families. Ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to foreign policy, we need to know exactly what's going on. We need a party who's going to be open and honest with their intentions, with the threats that we may or may not face. We don't need a party playing politics when it comes to foreign policy, just to have a reason to invade or to launch missiles or to start a war. That's the Republican Party of today. That's the Republican Party of today. To support Ukraine will weaken Russia further because they can't defeat them on the battlefield. The former president, Vladimir Putin, has vastly underestimated, overly calculated. Whatever he done, it's not working. And it's working against him. And it's going to continue to do so. So, to support Ukraine would be in America's best interest because it weakens Russia. Just like when we invaded, when the Soviets fought in Afghanistan. We assisted the Afghanis. We assisted them wholeheartedly because it was in our best interest in dealing with a foreign adversary like Russia. And it works both ways. It works both ways. Russia supplies weapons to Al Qaeda, to the Taliban, in hopes that, they will give the United States a run for their money, in hopes that they will weaken us militarily. And it's nothing to play politics with. Foreign policy is nothing to play politics with. We have our allies and we have our adversaries. The Republican way is to go it alone, whether they're right, whether they're wrong. Their way is to go it alone. The Democrats' way is to consult with our allies. Have a coalition of allies. And if there's any problem, any foreign policy, rogue nation, acts that undermine or violate the Geneva Convention, for example, we consult with our allies, and we take that joint approach for world safety. For what's in the best interest of the worldly population. We don't go rogue. We don't just go and wag the dog for no reason. So, that's where it's at. That's where it's at when it comes to foreign policy. But you can best believe that is no time for amateur hour here. There's no time for amateur hour when it comes to foreign policy. The go it alone approach is the wrong approach. Furthermore, our soldiers are suffering now. We're losing so many every day to suicide. And, the Democrats are, doing the best they can to put their heads together to try to find out what can be done. So the last thing we need is, a Republican Party in the majority, in leadership position, saber rattling, ready to start something, you know, with a foreign adversary. And our troops are not in the best shape mentally. Are they considering that? Are they considering it? So, we actually think about it when it comes to foreign policy 101. We want to take a measured approach. We don't want to just jump into something, you know, half cocked with not the right intelligence. It ruins our credibility. It pushes us to isolation, and that's not where we want to be. From the Democrats' point of view, we don't think that might makes right, even though we're a strong and powerful country. We're still intelligent enough to sit down with our allies, our foreign allies, to not take it a go alone approach. Go it alone approach. What do you think? What should be done here? And that's the right way. So that's it when it comes to foreign policy. You know, go it alone, saber rattling, assassinations, wagging the dog on, you know, small countries like Yemen where we have no interest, where it's not worth America's blood and treasure, or a party that's going to take a measured approach, going to be straightforward with the American people about as far as what's being done, and go from there. You decide. And with less than 24 hours, you don't have a lot of time to make up your mind. That's it on foreign policy. Immigration. Folks, comprehensive immigration is what we need. We heard it from the left time and time again. We need a comprehensive immigration plan, which will be the first step to solving the problem at the southern border. The first step, not, these big grandiose promises, these big braggadocious boasts that, I'll build a wall and I'll make another country pay for it. This doesn't solve anything. This doesn't make the problem go away. It's just empty rhetoric, just boastful rhetoric to fool who? The minds of the simple. The minds of the simple. So from the left, comprehensive immigration reform. From the right, nothing but complaints. Shipping people, immigrants who are facing dire consequences in their home countries, who are really trying to escape persecution, whether it be political, whether it be from gang violence. These people are trying to escape persecution. They're not taking these desperate travel measures for the fun of it, or just because they love America so much that they're going to do this. They're going to take this desperate trek and then get to America, get to the border and lie or make up something just to get into America. That's not the case. That's not the case. These people love their country, but they don't love what's going on inside of their country. So automatically, one would flee to safer ground. And so, this is the beginning of the immigration policy problem. These people have problems in their countries, and they're coming to America as a means to escape, looking for a better life. So the best thing that we can do is put comprehensive immigration on the floor for a vote. The farmers need some of these people in our, our public service jobs. We need some of these people to fill these vacancies. It will help ease the supply snarls in the supply chain. And so comprehensive immigration is the beginning of a way to solve all these things. Number one, the problem of the southern border being overran. So you have a party that's willing to roll up their sleeves and get to work doing something about it, and you have a party that's always complaining about it, but not willing to roll their sleeves and get to work in no kind of way. And let's just be honest, folks, the Republicans want no immigration at the southern border, maybe the northern border, maybe people coming in from other countries, but let's just be clear about it here. and tell the truth and shame the devil, because that's the only way to solve it. And that's what we're here. That's what we're all about here at Soluble. The Republicans want no, zero immigration if they can help it from the southern border. None. And that's coming from a racist point of view. Period. And there you have it when it comes to immigration. The Democrats want comprehensive immigration reform. Republicans have nothing but complaints, whining, creating this boogeyman that immigration is not. So with less than 24 hours, let's rock the vote on immigration. Let's rock the vote on immigration. We have a problem, and by all accounts, politicians, even from the right, have said we need comprehensive immigration. They just can't seem to meet anywhere in the middle, because, as I said, Republicans want really zero immigration coming through the southern border, if you want to know the truth. Okay, moving on. Climate change. This is a big one, ladies and gentlemen. It's not really at the top of the most important thing that's on the minds of the American voters, but if we don't stem the tide, in a few years it's gonna be. Because houses are being washed away. People's daily lives are being washed away. Crops are being washed away, burning up in the fields. We have to get our arms around this. We have to listen to what the science is telling us, what the scientists are saying. It's the only way to get our arms around it. Who has the best answer here? Balls and strikes. Who has the best answer? The Republicans seem to be mostly in denial. As I said, you had the little girl, Greta Thunberg, who was a climate activist. And you had the president over on the world stage. If I'm not mistaken, it was at the UN. Wouldn't even stop to take time out to acknowledge Greta Thunberg. So imagine that. You have a president, a commander-in-chief, a grown man who is too intimidated and too cowardly to approach a child, even if they do have opposing views on this particular issue. He's the leader of the free world. He's obligated to acknowledge her, even if their views differ. And the president walks right past, intimidated, afraid to speak with a child, because he has no knowledge of the subject. He has no knowledge of the situation. He's all about dollars and whatever it takes to make them. He has nothing to offer the child, Greta, from an opposing view or a view of agreement. Neither one. So what does the president do? Out of fear, out of not wanting to be made a fool of by a child, he avoids it altogether. But climate change is a serious issue. As I said, one of our major waterway shipping hubs, the Mississippi River, the water levels are dropping. They're dredging, but they can only do so much dredging. Then what? What is the plan from the right? It's now or never. It's now or never. As I said, we have less than 24 hours to vote, to get our turnout out on this particular subject, on this particular issue, climate change. Like I said, it's somewhere down there, 5 or 6, as it relates to the order of importance from a voter's point of view. But trust and believe, if we don't get our arms around it, if we don't begin to take it seriously, it's going to be at the top of the list when it comes to issues for future voters, because it's taking effect. And right now, as we speak, less than 24 hours before the midterm, it's affecting food prices, fuel prices, the housing market. It's affecting health of American citizens when it comes to extreme heat. We need to do something. We need to take a strong look at the O2 emissions that we're releasing into the atmosphere. Give renewable energy a chance, if we can make it work. And, we've shown that in America, nothing is too hard when we put our heads together to, tackle it as a nation. Most of the time, we solve the problem, and we solve it in a way that makes things better in the lives of everyday Americans. So that's it. Climate change. It's on the ballot in less than 24 hours. Your food prices, your fuel, and, it's going to be more to come. But it's not a situation where, the food prices, the fuel, and all that are just going up because of bad policy. Climate change is playing a major role. But you won't hear the Republicans say anything like that of the sort because they don't have a plan. Or the only plan they have is to demonize the current president and his administration, only to regain power. To regain power for a solution to climate change? No. To regain power to cater to the wealthy. To hear not the scientists' opinion on climate change, but what the wealthy, what the millionaires and billionaires in this country think we should do. And that's the wrong approach. So there you have it. Threats to democracy. Last but not least, this is the last one that we did last week, right here before the midterm. This was high on, the American people's minds as far as concern, an issue of concern going into the midterm. A no-brainer, once again, when it comes to threats to democracy. We didn't see a threat level like this until the former president came into office and began to lie. And his corruption corrupted the whole entire government and the people involved. And then it infected the American people and the minds of the people. Threats to democracy. When you lie about elections, when you stoke or instigate violence in society, when you incite a violent mob to stop a free and fair election, when you're making claims that everything is rigged and it's fake, you're undermining the basic principles and values that we have here in our democracy. And that is the threat in itself. And so what has it produced from 2015 to now? More of the same. More of the same threats. You have these people who are being elected and being voted into office who don't have a clue of how to govern, what it takes to work across the aisles to get things done. But they do know one thing. They can come in with the same nastiness, mean-spiritedness as the former president. It got him elected, and it'll get me elected. That's a threat in itself. No plans to govern, to make America better, just to spew violent, hateful rhetoric and, be a party of no. And so that's the way it is. The president came in as a threat to democracy, inciting violence, encouraging violence. And from then to now, he's undermining the system. He's tainted government in a way that we haven't seen before in our lifetime. And now you see, his acolytes coming out to run also. Kind of on the same type message. Dr. Oz. You already have him in office. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, Matt Gaetz, Josh Hawley. Doing the same thing that they seen the president successful at doing, and they try to come in and emulate it. Be mean-spirited, make false accusations. Don't try to go, and be an elected candidate to serve in the best possible way, but disrupt, complain, make it seem like everything is doomsday. This is not the making of a good politician that strengthens democracy. And therefore, that's why we have the threat. Because what they're trying to present is that everything is bad, messed up, rigged, fake. They're promoting it. They're coming in and rallying right behind the president, right with the president, and threatening democracy. So, with less than 24 hours, you know, calling balls and strikes on threats to democracy. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen. Threat 101. Just simply putting a celebrity in office who has no experience, who doesn't have a clue of what he's doing. He's over in North Korea saluting his subordinates who should be saluting him. The former president didn't have a clue. And so when you put someone in like that, who doesn't know what they're doing, who doesn't care to try to govern all of America after the elections are over with, then that's a threat to democracy. And we see what has happened from 2015 to now. We see where it's at, the level of discourse. It's because of the Republicans and who they've elected and who they've stood idly by and watched tear down everything that we hold near and dear, to run roughshod over it, taking away classified documents. All kind of things to, whatever he feel like, he wants to do to undermine, create a situation that makes it seem like he's being singled out or he's being picked on. So he can, in his sick, greedy mind, begin to fundraise off of it. That's what this former president has done. And, democracy is under threat now as a result of simply electing him to office because of his lack of experience, because of his lack of etiquette, because of his lack of concern as to how a president should be in a free nation, in the most powerful country in the world. So there you have it. So in closing, we're going to make one final appeal. And this is to my fellow Americans, Negroes in particular. You're voting 90 something plus percent for one party. No other racial group in the country votes that strongly for one party. You don't have 90% of Caucasians voting Democrat or 90% of Caucasians voting Republican. You don't have 90% of Hispanics voting Democrat or 90 something plus percent of Hispanics voting Republican. So you have the power. You hold the power with that 90 something percent. But it does no good if we don't have turnout. If we have Negroes in America who are 90 something plus percent voting for Democrats, but we only have 30% turning out or 40% turning out, that's what the damage is done. And that's how you get a country that is governed off of a majority being governed off of minority rule because you haven't voted. Negroes in America, you have the power to sway the election every time, but you have to go and vote. You have to go and vote. You have the power to control the military, control the Supreme Court, with 90 something plus percent of your vote going towards Democrats. And so now it's time to go on the offensive. We went on we voted on the defensive when it came to Brother George Floyd. We voted on the defensive when it comes to the first black president. So now, with this latest vote where we rocked the vote and got Trump out, we see the reaction from Republicans. They want to claim it was stolen. They want to claim there was cheating going on. But we see what happened in Coffee County. We see what happened in Douglas, Georgia. You don't see the Republicans come out and, hit the ceiling about it. And say something's going on here and we're going to get to the bottom of it. You don't see that. The party right now that is calling out, voting irregularities The party that is saying watch out for cheating, watch out for underhanded things going on, is the party that's doing the most underhanded things. But they think you, the American people, are going to be slow to catch on. So, in my final appeal to Negroes in America who are of eligible voting age, this is our time. It's if you're 45 and up, this is our time. We can't pass this on off to our children. This was handed to us by the last generation, our generation of predecessors, Dr. King, and all those who marched, fought, and championed a cause of civil rights with him. This is our torch now. The torch is in our hands, and we must vote. And so it's time to go on the offensive now. It's time to go on the offensive. We don't need to wait until we see another cop with his knee on the neck of one of our brothers and sisters. We don't need to wait until we get another president who is so racist and bigoted that he's turning America upside down. Now it's time to go on the offensive, because this is the front line. This is the front line battle for Negroes in America, to stop racism, to stop inequality in housing, inequality in healthcare. Any of the slights that you suffer out here in American society because of your race. This is the time to go on the offensive to stop it with your vote. We often say we've come a long way, but we still got a long way to go. It's only as far as your local voting precinct. That's as far as you have to go. And if you don't go there, if you don't make that trip, then we're never going to get where we're trying to go. So this is the time to go on the offensive with your vote. And we'll eliminate all the things that constantly have us sick and tired of being sick and tired. Constantly feeling like we're second class, that we don't count, that America doesn't care. Your vote counts. Your vote counts. And if you go vote in your leaders of choice, you will begin to see a difference in your lives. Just like you voted Trump out and you're seeing things begin to calm down, even though he's still rearing his ugly head. We have to go out and vote. We have to go on the offensive now. It's our duty that was passed on to us from, our predecessors who fought and championed the cause of equal rights in this country. The torch is in our hands now. And if you don't go and vote, then you're not carrying the torch. You're thinking that everything that's in this country has always been free for me, has always been without struggle, and nothing could be further than the truth. The predecessors who championed civil rights and who marched and fought, they've paved the way for you to enjoy the freedoms that you enjoy in this country today. It was never given to us as a race of people. It was never, leveled as a playing field to say, let's make it fair and equal. We always had to fight for it. We always had to advocate for it. We always had to push lawmakers to get it. So now, if you no longer want to have to deal with that, you have to go on the offensive with your vote. This is where the frontline battle is at, to stop racism, to stop the Karens, who are calling the cops just because you're barbecuing, selling water, or just simply, going out of your own front door to pick up the evening newspaper and they don't feel like you belong in that neighborhood. This is the frontline battle, the voting booth. This is the frontline battle. This is the place to champion, to fight the good fight, to be a cure-all, if you will, to all the ills that affect you in America every day. So if you want it to end, then you go on the offensive with the vote. We're constantly sick and tired. We're constantly offended. We're constantly upset. Well, during the last presidential election, we seen racist Caucasians upset. So we turned the tables on them simply with the vote. Simply with the vote. We seen them upset. Not because something underhanded had happened, not because something criminal or crooked had happened, simply because we beat them at the ballot box. And they tried to turn it back or overturn it, but they couldn't. So we need to go on the offensive now more than ever and beat them twice. And we need to stay on the offensive to make sure that nothing like Brother George Floyd ever happens again. To make sure that a racist, bigoted president like the one we had in 2016 never happens again. So we need to vote. We need to turn out. And here at Soluble, we're going to tell it like it is in order to hopefully solve the problem of low voter turnout amongst Negroes. Because as I said, facts, and these are facts. We're voting 90+% for the Democratic Party. But when we don't turn out, it means nothing. It means nothing. So we have to go on the offensive now. Working class Negroes, you're doing a great job. Negroes in America, opposition here is Soluble. And, if we're wrong, we're ready to hear an opposing view. We're ready to offer up an apology if we're wrong. But Negroes in America who are Section 8, welfare, food stamps, any kind of assistance, any kind of entitlement, and you feel as if, your world is set, everything is good with you. So it doesn't matter one way or another. We need your vote. We need you to vote like Section 8 is going away. We need you to vote as if, they're getting ready to take your food stamps and your welfare check. Don't, let these things begin to come to be threatened or being taken away from you. These entitlements, these handouts that make you lazy to vote. Work with your brothers and sisters who are out here every day on the front lines. We don't think we're better than you because we work and you don't. We don't think less of you because we work and you don't. But we need your vote. There's no time to get comfortable because, your monthly check, your EBT card, and all that is going to be there. You still need to vote because, when it comes to time where Republicans got the majority and they're ready to take all those things away, then it's too late. You have no one to complain to. Everyday working Negroes don't care to hear it. They don't want to hear it because you never voted. So now that, if it ever comes to the point where your playhouse is being torn down from all your entitlements, you have no one to complain to. You have no one to sympathize for you because you've taken the lazy way out. You've taken the nonchalant. You've taken the, apathetic, lack of concern way out. You don't care one way or another because in your world of entitlements, everything is fine. We need you, brothers and sisters. And that's my final appeal. Vote like your entitlements are being taken away, even though they're not. Vote like they are. And, get up and get out. And let's rock the vote. We in America as Negroes, this is our front line. And it's time to go on the offensive. It's time to go on the offensive. If they thought that they was upset and angry, on January the 6th of 2021, let's really give them something to get angry about. So that we don't have to be. We don't have to be angry. We don't have to be discontent. We don't have to be in America always suffering or always behind. Or always when it comes to the negative things, our numbers are up. But when it comes to the positive things, our numbers are down. It doesn't have to be like that. You can control it with the vote. So it's now or never. Let's go on the offensive because, as the former President Barack Obama said, democracy itself is on the ballot. And if democracy is gone, then it's a good possibility that those of you who are living off of entitlements and are content, your entitlements can be taken away also. Now, we'll never vote for entitlements because we feel like work is better. But to each his own. All we're saying is participate in the process, even though in your mind, you're set. Participate in the process because we are 90% plus voting bloc for Democrats. And that swings the pendulum in our favor every time. Because as I said, you got every other ethnic group, splitting their vote between Republicans, Democrats, some are independents. No other racial makeup group is voting 90+% for one party. That's us. And if we do so every time there's an election, we'll control the narrative. We'll control the Oval Office. We'll have more say so on the laws that are being passed in this country. We'll be able to stop police brutality. We'll be able to stop unfairness in housing, discrimination on any level, racial injustice on any level. We'll be able to stop it by turning out to vote. So that's our final appeal. We'll sit back tomorrow night, God willing, and we'll watch the numbers come in. We're hoping for a blue wave. We're hoping for a Democratic wave to sweep the nation and keep Democrats in power, because we know that that's the best way forward. It's been shown. As I said, historically, the economy does better under Democrats. Historically, you're going to have more sound foreign policy. You're going to have better health care on the Democrats. This thing about as far as crime, is just a Republican talking point. It's just something to throw out there to strike fear into the hearts of the voters. So, in my final appeal to my fellow Americans, Negroes in particular, we need you to come out and vote. We need turnout up. And if that happens, you will begin to see the change. You will begin to see the difference that your vote makes if we get them in large numbers. Now, if they don't come in large numbers, if the turnout is not there, then the Republicans win. And we have minority rule simply because we didn't get out to vote. And we see what that did in 2016. We see what that did in 2010 when President Obama was coming up for the first midterm vote of his time in office. We see the damage that was done. So, in our final appeal, like I said, turnout is the operative word here. Turnout, turnout, turnout. I can't say it enough. This is Soluble signing off. We're going to sit back tomorrow night. As I said, we're going to watch the numbers. And then, we're going to come back on, regardless of which party's in power, because we're always looking for the solution. We're here to debate. We're here to inform and, open the eyes of the simple American voter to help better explain policy issues, show you the difference, show you, what's really going on, regardless of what a politician may be saying, Democrat or Republican. So stay tuned. We'll watch the numbers, and we're looking for that, that Democratic blue wave. Let's get the turnout up, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get the turnout up. So until we meet again, we're going to sit back and watch the numbers tomorrow. We're going to take off the rest of the week and analyze and digest and begin to come back on the beginning of next week. So until we see you again, let's get the turnout up and really rock the vote, because it's going to make a difference in how America looks going forward as a country and how it affects us in our daily lives as Americans. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to continuing this discussion, a few days after the midterms. This is Soluble signing out. Good night, and God bless. Thank you.